Well, what is up, everyone? And you are here for one of two reasons. Either one, you are a loyal subscriber who watches all of my videos, liking and commenting, and just being an overall majestic human being. Love you. Or, and probably more likely, you're thinking about having a real grass putting green in your backyard. And you're wondering, can a mere mortal, full-time job having, young children having person accomplish something like that? And the answer is yes, because I am all of those things. Now, is it easy? No. However, might not be quite as hard as you think. And so we are here in episode 2 of my series this season on trying to explain with the best of my knowledge and ability how a normal homeowner can go about having a natural grass putting green in their backyard that is playable, usable, might not be the most beautiful thing in the world, but hey, we can get out there, we can roll some putts with our family and just generally have a great time. If you have not seen the first video in this series, please click the link up over there. That will take you to the first video in the series that talks about the equipment that we have to have. And I did my best of trying to break it down by the things that you must have, should have, and are nice to have, and what that's going to set you back from a cost perspective. This video, however, we're talking about something that is critically important, but feels like something that's maybe a little bit of a throwaway concept, and that is location. Where you're going to pick to put your putting green. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickle. That was a heck of a sentence. The location that you're going to put your putting green is one of the most important pieces of this puzzle. My word, the alliteration. So with that said, let's talk about, based on my experience and knowledge of doing this in my own backyard, the things you want to consider when it comes to where you're going to pick to put. I'm so sick of saying this friggin' sentence. I don't know if any of this is usable. So with that, let's talk about where we are going to put our putting greens, baby. Yeah! So there's two main kind of characteristics of the things you need to consider with where you're going to put your putting green. The first is how it's going to interact with your lot, with your property, and with the functionality of the rest of your yard and what you use it for. And the other is the natural limitations, or maybe man-made limitations, that are going to actually have an impact on your ability to grow healthy turf at a very, very low height of cut. And so really the first piece of that, and probably the most critical piece of the puzzle, is how it's going to interact with the rest of your yard. So where you're going to put it, we want to really find a place that is going to not fight against everything else you use your yard for. So if you play with your kids, if your dog runs around and goes into a certain pattern, if you have a space that you use for parties to do whatever it is, if you have the green in a place that just cripples the functionality of everything else, you're going to hate having it, and it's going to withdraw from your enjoyment of having it, and it's going to withdraw from your desire, willingness, ability to maintain it at the level that you have to maintain it in order to have something that you can use. And so we either need to find a place that is just extra that you don't use at all, or somewhere that will fit in functionally and kind of be out of the way enough that you can still do all the other thing that you do in your yard. One thing too is this is going to impact how you're mowing the rest of your yard, right? So if you put this in the middle, you're kind of going to always be fighting, either running the mower over the green, which is not ideal, or you're going to be making all these tiny little passes as you go around the perimeter of it, and it's just not going to be fun to mow the rest of your yard. It's going to cause you problems. Again, you're just not going to be able to get excited about maintaining it because it's going to be a pain. And then the other aspect in kind of working against this is we want to pick somewhere that is playable, i.e., you're going to want to be able to have access to the green from all angles because you're going to want to hit chip shots into it. So ideally somewhere with a reasonably long sight line where skulls and shanks are not in risk of endangering your own or your neighbor's home. So somewhere where you can give yourself the longest sight line to be able to hit chip shots into. Definitely something that you want to consider to be able to have a green in a place that you can really use and have fun on. And the other piece of playability is slope. So yes, greens on golf courses have a lot of contour and ridges and parts that are definitely not flat. However, the places where they're putting the flagstick are generally quite flat, at least relative to maybe the average homeowner lot. Where I put mine doesn't visually appear like there's that much slope. However, realistically, the bottom third of the green is almost a false front when I'm cutting short or when it kind of thinned out towards parts of the year and it was more dirt. Basically, with relatively limited feel of slope, the ball will just straight up run off. So we need to find somewhere that's at least relatively flat. A little bit of contour is fine, but we need it flat enough that it's going to hold a ball at green's height. The next piece, and where we start to kind of transition into both playability as well as the ability to maintain grass, is going to be water management. So generally the corners of your lot are going to be the lowest lying places on your lot, right? Because ideally your contractor built your house up a little bit higher, everything flows away. And a corner of your lot is going to be a good place to put a green. However, if that's where all the water from your and all your neighbors' houses tends to pool in, that's going to cause you a ton of problems. It's never going to dry out. You're not going to be able to use it. Plus all that ground being saturated, we're already going to be fighting a battle against diseases. We don't need that battle to be exacerbated by water constantly sitting on it, both preventing us from using it, so it's going to hinder the fun aspect, and also preventing us from growing healthy turf in an area that's just always saturated. Another piece of that is airflow. So if you have a fenced in yard, again, ideally we're going to bury this thing in the corner. However, that's going to be where you have some of the worst airflow, and we really want to have at least some air moving around. Again, same with the water idea. We want to try to limit the natural disease pressure that we have wherever we put this green, because we're going to be fighting against it kind of in general anyway. Also, if you don't have a fence but you have a tree line, I would recommend trying to keep it a little ways away from there as well if it's dense, because that's also going to be limiting the airflow that you have to your green. And then the last bit is we need to pick a place that is sunny. And now in a lesson that I'm learning, again, some lessons that I'm taking from the folks on the Thirsty Thursday podcast, which I was lucky enough to be invited onto, is they talked about the concept of the fact that as we cut the grass shorter, we are reducing the leaf blade, which is what the plant's using to photosynthesize. So if it's an area in shade already, when we're cutting the grass as short as we're cutting it, we're hamstringing that turf even more than we were already by it being in the shade. So as best as you can, find an area of your yard that's seeing pretty consistent sunlight throughout the day. Now, it doesn't have to be all day that's in the sun, but we want to find as much as we can in a place, again, dealing with the other points where it's out of the way and there isn't standing water. And so it's going to be a balancing act for you to manage usability of your yard, manage putting it in a place that works to be fun to play on, managing the slope and flat areas of your yard that you have available to you, managing water, airflow, and sunlight. So you want to take all of those components and combine them together and try to find the best place that you have available to you. And if you don't have a decent it doesn't have to all be perfect, but if you don't have a decent combination of all of those factors, this might not be for you. I don't want to make that, I'm saddened to say that for you, but this might not work for you. So you've gone through, you've assessed the lot that you have, all of those factors, we've picked the perfect spot. Now, how big do we make it? Here again, we're fighting a contest between fun and usability, its impact against your lot, and your ability to manage. So my green is 450 to 500 square feet, and I'm gonna say that's about as small as you want to make it. And the reason is, if we're gonna put a hole or a target or something somewhere that we're gonna putt to on a 500 square foot green, maybe you have a 20 footer going one direction and like a 6, 7, 8 footer going the other direction. And hitting all those putts over and over and over and over again in your backyard over the course of a year starts to get pretty boring. And if you go any smaller than that, you have even less variability. So my suggestion, because of that, is the smallest we want to be is 500 square feet. Now, is that to say that if you go any smaller than that, it's not worth your time? No. However, in a perfect world, not any smaller than that. However, managing these greens has some tasks that are a ton of work. Aerating, top dressing, rolling, mowing every 2 or 3 days, fertilizing frequently, PGR usage, disease preventatives, fungicides. All this stuff becomes more and more work the larger the green gets. Now at 500 square feet, you can accomplish a lot of tasks in under 2 hours. However, at 1500 square feet or 2000 square feet, that becomes a days-long project. So with that being said, based on my experience, the availability of time, desire, and resources I have, I'm gonna say 1,000 square feet is a happy place. Maybe you can stretch to 1,500 square feet if you're really, really into this. Anything bigger than that, understand what you're signing up for. It's gonna be a tall ask. Plus, you're gonna need to have a pretty big lot in order to have a 2,000 square foot green that fits in nicely with that property. So my suggestion to you, pick a size between 500 and 1500 square feet, and I'm going to say 1,000 square feet is going to be a nice balance between the amount of work it is and the fun factor of that green. And there we go. Based on my experience and limited knowledgeability as a turfgrass manager, which again, let's all remember, I'm just a guy with kids, a full-time job, and a yard. That's where my qualifications stop. But based on my experience, those are kind of my suggestions on how to go about looking at your lot and figuring out, okay, I want to have a putting green. I'm committed to buying the equipment and dealing with that expense. Now, where the heck are we going to put this thing? So hopefully that's helpful. If you have any other considerations that I haven't thought of, please feel free to leave those in the comments. We can go back and forth and hopefully help some people down there. Like the video if it was helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep following along to this or the beginner lawn care series that I'm running this year, or if you just want to follow along to the stuff we're doing here in our lawn. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.